The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke.
Glory to you, O Lord.
Tax collectors and sinners were all drawing near to listen to Jesus. But the Pharisees and scribes began to complain, saying, "This man welcomes sinners and eats with them." So to them he addressed this parable. What man among you, having 100 sheep and losing one of them, would not leave the 99 in the desert and go after the lost one until he finds it? And when he does find it, he sets it on his shoulders with great joy. And upon his arrival home, he calls together his friends and neighbors and says to them, "Rejoice with me because I have found my lost sheep." I tell you, in just the same way, there will be more joy in heaven over one sinner who repents than over 99 righteous people who have no need of repentance. Or what woman, having 10 coins and losing one, would not light a lamp and sweep the house, searching carefully until she finds it? And when she does find it, she calls together her friends and neighbors and says to them, "Rejoice with me because I have found the coin that I lost." In just the same way, I tell you, there will be rejoicing among the angels of God over one sinner who repents. Then he said, "A man had 2 sons, and the younger son said to his father, 'Father, give me the share of your estate that should come to me.' So the father divided the property between them. After a few days, the younger son collected all his belongings and set off to a distant country, where he squandered his inheritance on a life of dissipation. When he had freely spent everything, a severe famine struck that country, and he found himself in dire need. So he hired himself out to one of the local citizens, who sent him to his farm to tend the swine. And he longed to eat his fill of the pods on which the swine fed, but no one gave him any. Coming to his senses, he thought, 'How many of my father's hired workers have more than enough food to eat? But here am I, dying from hunger. I shall get up and go to my father, and I shall say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I no longer deserve to be called your son. Treat me as you would treat one of your hired workers.' So he got up and went back to his father. While he was still a long way off, his father caught sight of him and was filled with compassion. He ran to his son, embraced him, and kissed him. His son said to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I no longer deserve to be called your son.' But his father ordered his servants, 'Quickly bring the finest robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. Take the fattened calf and slaughter it. Then let us celebrate with a feast, because this son of mine was dead, but has come to life again. He was lost and has been found.' Then the celebration began. Now the older son had been out in the field, and on his way back, as he neared the house, he heard the sound of music and dancing. He called one of the servants and asked what this might mean. The servant said to him, 'Your brother has returned, and your father has slaughtered the fattened calf, because he has him back safe and sound.' He became angry, and when he refused to enter the house, his father came out and pleaded with him. He said to his father in reply, 'Look, all these years I served you, and not once did I disobey your orders. Yet you never gave me even a young goat to feast on with my friends. But when your son returns, who swallowed up your property with prostitutes, for him you slaughter the fattened calf.' He said to him, 'My son, you are here with me always. Everything I have is yours. But now we must celebrate and rejoice, because your brother was dead and has come to life again. He was lost and has been found. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Well, in that long gospel, we have two parables. And the second parable is unique to Luke's gospel. And for me, it's one of my favorite parables because the characters and their emotions are right there for all to see. They come out. We get to know them better maybe sometimes than the people in the other parables. And we know the name of this story is the parable of the prodigal son. I would like to call it today the story of two spoiled brats. Yeah, two spoiled brats. The younger wanted his loving father dead so he could inherit the estate. And when he got tired of waiting, he demanded his half right on the spot. Left town without a forwarding address. Before long, he was dead broke. The elder son was the perfect little rule keeper, dutiful, obedient, smiling, always on time. But underneath that mask was a heart burning with resentment. He complained to his father, first for giving away half of the estate, and then for taking his brother back. And he resented his brother for leaving him to do all the work on the farm, even surmising that his brother went so far as losing the father's gift in a life of immorality. And he then pouted, whined, that the father never threw him a party. Now, each son, in his own way, cut himself off for what we all need most, and that is communion. Communion of family, communion of faith, communion of friends and neighbors, all of which is rooted in a readiness to give ourselves to each other without counting how many times or what the cost may be. Like all of us, those sons needed to give life and to receive it in their relationships. But they burned their bridges behind them. They broke their ties, could care less for each other, and were trapped in a lonely sadness of greed and resentment. Now, for us, it might be tempting to say, you both are spoiled brats, and I'm done with both of you. But that's not what the father did. He formed a new tie, showed care for both of them, as he always did. And all of that, in that story, so nicely symbolized by the feast full of friends and neighbors for the younger son. And by his tender fatherly words to the older son, he said, "You are with me always, and everything I have is yours. But now we must celebrate and rejoice, because your brother was lost and has been found." That's what God is like. That's what our God has done ever since Adam and Eve turned away from his gifts in the Garden of Eden. He is constantly reaching out, building new bridges to connect with us, with him, and with each other. And he's helping cleaning up the messes we have made for ourselves and inviting us back into the bosom of his family. As God does that for us, he's asking us to do the same for each other. Build bridges, bring people together, help one another to learn how to give life and also to receive it, and help one another break free of whatever is cutting off from them the life of the community. That's the essence of our life's work as following Jesus. It's huge, maybe difficult at times, but if we get it right, it's the happiest and best work in all the world. And I suppose you know by now, we are the children in the story. God is the forgiving Father. So let us not be selfish, spoiled brats as God's children.